Episode number 10, CD Logic Podcast, Special Edition, Movie Review, Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. The longest title ever.
Just like The Rise of Skywalker.
Yes. So tonight's episode will be our first movie review. And we have a couple guests. As you saw in episode 9, we have David Hall from Solid Brix Studios YouTube channel.
Yep.
Awesome guy. Check that video out if you haven't already. And then we're also featuring Luke again, as you saw on our Christmas Spirit, Christmas Eve.
Tech guy making another performance in front of the mic.
Yeah, lucky you. Only thing, he broke the camera the last time you were on here. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. And then for the first appearance is my little brother, well, not so little, Shane Carruth, as you've probably seen him in some of our other travel videos. So this is our full 5 panel for Rise of Skywalker. Who wants to get us started?
Let's start with the big time guest, David Hall.
Oh, all right.
Overall opinion.
The only one that's seen it once.
I feel like that's a shame now. So I saw it opening night and all that. Does that count?
That's
a
point.
It counts.
That's
1.5 times then.
Fair enough. I saw it.
I saw it, and I'm going to make an opinion on it.
I'm going to make a opinion.
Already laughing. That's not a good sign.
No, I enjoyed the movie. You know, I was just talking to you guys. I'd give it like a 6 or 7 out of 10. A lot of my issues were the very first part of the movie where it was just extremely fast. Totally took me out for a second because, like, when has any Star Wars movie been this fast paced? And I totally understand they were just trying to squeeze in so much story and all that. Felt like they were retconning things at the very beginning, even with the title, like Palpatine's alive and doesn't explain that. And then anyhow, we go into the movie. A lot of good parts. I was a little baby during the Chewie when he broke down from Leia's death. Oh God,
absolutely.
I guess we should also mention we're going to totally talk spoilers.
Oh yeah. Spoiler.
Yeah.
Also, Chewie dies.
No. Spoilers will also be in the title, and I'll go back and put it like somewhere on like the picture that's playing. I'll put in the picture like the beginning of the video, flashing spoilers somehow, some way.
Now we just have to hope people know how to read.
But yeah, the Leia death got me. I was bawling in the theater. My girlfriend was like, David, are you okay? But yeah, so there's some good parts like that. A lot of my issues with the movie were definitely towards the end. Specifically the kiss between Rey and Kylo, and specifically how they end it with Rey being a Skywalker, and that whole thing on Tatooine I wasn't a big fan of, but again, we'll talk more about it. So overall, I liked the movie. It didn't have the gravitas of some of the other Star Wars movies. There was 7 or 8 lightsaber battles in this film, and none of them had the weight of like Anakin versus Obi-Wan or Obi-Wan versus
Darth Maul.
No, Darth Vader, and also Darth Maul
right.
too, or Luke versus Vader. Like none of them had that, or even in The Force Awakens, that battle between Finn, Rey, and Kylo. Like it didn't feel like it had much weight. Stuff like that. There was just moments that kind of were like, I wish they could have been a little bit better. But overall, I did enjoy the movie. I thought it was a good Star Wars movie. Did feel like a lot of retconning and stuff like that towards The Last Jedi, but that's all right. But yeah, that's my overall opinion. It's good.
And before we pass the baton, we'll finish our reviews with where do you think it places, and we'll do the 9 Skywalker saga.
Oh, so Rogue One can't be in that?
All right, fine.
The 11.
We'll throw 11. Where does it rank? 11 being last, 1 being the first. The best. Your favorite.
In the 7 or 6 range.
So mid table. Okay,
yeah,
not bad.
Yeah, a little lower than mid table.
Are you a prequels fan?
I am a big prequel. Episode 3 is my favorite.
All right, we'll say that. All right, Shane, go ahead.
Overall, I actually agree with a lot of things David said. Kind of to elaborate on that, yes, it does feel rushed, but it's because I'm gonna give the disclaimer now. I hate what Rian Johnson did with The Last Jedi. Yeah. You know, it's like I tried. Yeah, I tried to defend it. I tried so hard, and I couldn't do it. It was impossible. I was like, this is not Star Wars. It doesn't feel like Star Wars. And everybody, I mean, I know this is said 1,000 times, but when Luke tosses the lightsaber, that's what Rian Johnson did with Star Wars. He was like, no, screw you, Star Wars fans. This is your trilogy. This is your baby. Look what I'm doing with it. You know, and so yes, it is rushed, but it's because J.J. Abrams was like, not only do I have to save this story, but I've got to do some damage control, take care of, you know, almost find a way to make what happened that is now canon. Like, look what you did, Rian Johnson. This now exists. This is in the timeline. I have to do some damage control, fix that. So, you know, overall, I think that could have been avoided completely if Disney had just had a plan. And, you know, if they hadn't just said, oh, well, you know, let's listen to the fans, because there's so many different opinions among Star Wars fans.
Fans over critics any day.
Right. I mean, sure, totally. But they just went way too much with the wind. It was like you have, the people who love the prequels, you have the people who hate the prequels, and both of them, just two of probably the 11 different perspectives among Star Wars fans, saying, no, we want this, and we want more of that, and more of this. Oh, Force Awakens feels too much like, the original trilogy. Oh, okay, well, let's not do that. So let's go the opposite direction with Last Jedi. And it's like, if they had just had a plan in the first place, and everybody was on board, they sat, together, the board, and whatever, and they determined this in the beginning, we wouldn't be having this. All in all, though, I think J.J. Abrams did a fantastic job at least redeeming what he could, with Rise of Skywalker. I enjoyed it overall. It felt like every time something happened, it was great. All the moments in between felt like connect the dots or, just filler to make it feel like it wasn't just a giant cluster of big things happening. Because then that's just too much, and it makes the movie kind of, it's like people get used to anything. So if it's all exciting, then none of it's exciting now. So,
so all in all, where would you rank it in the 11 films?
Probably about 6.
7. DJ?
All right. I enjoyed the movie a lot the first time I watched it. I loved it. Walked out of the theater, thoroughly entertained. Second time watching it, I went into it with more of a critical eye. I think I had a lot of fun with the movie. I think the biggest compliment that you can give this movie is that it actually makes The Last Jedi a better movie. Because it goes back and specific things, which we can talk about later, carry more gravity now when you look at the final story in part. Which I think that's a fantastic compliment because of how much I did not like The Last Jedi to begin with. I think that the movie was very fast-paced, but I think it does a very good job of keeping you updated on where the story is going, why it's going to the next place. It does a great job of, like he said, connecting the dots. There's a handful of moments that were kind of rolling eyes, like the Kylo Ren Rey kiss and all, or Ben Solo kiss. I thought a hug would have meant way more. Way more to the whole entire story. A hug would have been amazing. A kiss seems out of place. It doesn't fit character. Anyways. But yeah, I really enjoy the movie. It has its flaws, but I don't think those flaws take away from the fact that overall it was a great movie and overall entertaining. Out of all of the Star Wars movies, I'd probably put it at 5.
5.
I love the scale of it. The scale of it, I took notes the second time watching it. The scale of the movie is amazing. I love when a movie can make things feel massive. And throughout the movie at multiple points, you're looking at going like, I can't believe that was that big.
Right.
And it's just amazing. So
we have 2, 6, and a 5. Luke, number 4. Let's go.
I thought it was really good the first time I saw it. The second time I went in with more of a critical eye.
You can't copy my whole statement.
And I found stuff that I didn't really like, but still overall, it's still a good movie, good Star Wars movie. With what you said.
There's no video this time.
He had to retcon a lot of things that what's the director?
Rian Johnson.
Yeah, that Rian Johnson did, and he also had to finish not only the trilogy but the saga. So I thought it was a well ending to the Skywalker saga.
Out of the 9 or out of the 11?
Mid-table.
Mid-table.
Yeah.
5, 6, 7.
Yeah.
Somewhere one of those.
One of those two, yeah. Or 3. So.
Fair enough. So that way I don't beat a dead horse.
He used to hate it.
No. This is The Last Jedi. It's another story. So that way I don't beat a dead horse. I'm actually I'm the only one of this 5 panel that has seen it 3 times. So seeing it this morning, actually, for my 3rd time, I went into a less critical and more of like a bit attention to detail perspective. And of course, my first time on opening night was, oh my gosh, this is the end of the Skywalker saga. JJ, what did you do? What did you give me? What did you, fill in the plot holes, they answer the questions, so on. Second time was, of course, more critical. This time I took more notes, so not only did I take notes on the actual, different lore and narrative and, as DJ said, scale, but even just like stuff in the background. And I think overall, I love this movie just as much as I did the first time than I did today the third time, because of like, even I'm gonna hit on it again, DJ said like the scale, like it made me feel like a kid again. You know, I think and this will do another video or maybe dig into it deeper, but and here in a bit, but the prequels, they did a good job at paving the way for CGI, and I think that this movie almost gave kind of like a somewhat of a callback to the CGI, because I know some people frown upon it in certain different genres of film, but Star Wars does such a good job at carrying the torch with it because it's mostly sci-fi and space travel and aliens. And I think just between the scale, between creatures, between explosions, sound, I mean, the scene that gets me the most, that I don't know why, but it was the moment that Kylo is just full speed ahead at Rey, face the other way, and every time it pans a different angle, the sound like transforms with her head, but I'm putting myself in her shoes. It just, we'll go into detail in a minute, but it's just the little things that fully throw you into it that Last Jedi definitely lacked, but I think what I needed to fully throw me into this movie as the ending to the Skywalker saga. So on the scale of 11, I'm going to say 5 or 6. I would actually love to do a breakdown or a video of all 11 with you guys or something sometime. Maybe not like actually ranking out every movie, but ranking our 1 to 11 or 11 to 1, whatever, what have you. But I think it's going to sit 5 or 6. So.
All right, then. Now that we got the opening round of opinions out of the way, I would like to go right for the throat and argue with David Hall. We all can agree on a lot of things that we like about this, but as we all know, the internet works on negative things. So, you mentioned that you didn't think that this one had any lightsaber battles with like gravity to it, as other ones did.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think all of them. Jeez, there's so many.
Well, every movie has at least one that holds a lot of gravity and everything.
Yeah, like
Last Jedi,
Phantom Menace. We were saying.
Well, the Last Jedi, I would argue that the battle with Rey and Kylo against the Red Guard or whatever they're called.
Yeah, that was a fantastic.
That's one of the best action shots.
That great was.
Yeah,
there are some technical flaws in there, but that's another video.
Yeah, some of them are doing some weird tricks in the background.
One guy pauses.
I saw a video.
It's not my turn to hit you. Hold on. He literally stumbles
but
for a whole
overall,
second.
It's a good scene.
You don't notice that the first time you watch it.
Right.
The first time you watch it,
That's fair.
Whoa.
But I would argue that the lightsaber battle between Rey and Kylo that effectively kills Kylo Ren and awakens Ben Kenobi. That is, in my opinion, one of the best lightsaber battles, because it's the first time that you really see a lightsaber battle tire the two people in it. Like, people give great praise to the Daredevil fight scenes about how you can see the character physically getting tired throughout the entire thing, and that's really refreshing, because usually in movies it's just nonstop. You never see them get tired. John Wick does very similar. You see Rey physically getting tired throughout that lightsaber battle because they're putting so much energy into it. I would argue that that's one of the best lightsaber battles across the movies.
Yeah, I agree. That was definitely, if there's a standout lightsaber fight, it was definitely that one. Because then right after that, Leia dies, Han Solo makes his appearance, or Harrison Ford makes his appearance as Han Solo again. So a lot happens during the sequence, and I'm definitely not gonna lie, that was probably one of the highlights of the movie. And that's also when I started crying after that. It was emotional roller coaster right then and there. The only thing I think that took me out of that lightsaber scene was like, obviously, Rey basically had the upper hand. I haven't seen the movie a bunch of billion times like you guys have. But I'm pretty sure she stabs him with the lightsaber, right?
Only because he's distracted by...
He's distracted by
Leia's death. Yeah. And while all of that's happening, I'm like, yes, this is great. And then it's the healing thing that takes me out of that fight, and immediately...
Which I've heard of.
All of a sudden, like, this fight didn't feel as, like, they didn't have that gravity. Okay. It takes that gravity away. But other than that, it was a great fight. I really did enjoy that.
I gotcha.
Yeah. When they use that healing thing one too many times, it becomes a little... Yeah. They use it 3 times.
I had just seen that with the worm thing.
Yeah. They did that because they were going to use it on Kylo Ren. It's like they couldn't have just had him do it, because it's like, whoa, now it feels like, we killed Kylo.
But then you have Kylo do it back to her.
And then I would argue that the third time it was used was probably like the most poetic, because essentially when Kylo did it to Rey to essentially bring her back, that if she wasn't, I guess, confirmed dead or basically dead.
Oh, she was dead.
From all the power that she exerted to beat
Kylo
her
was,
grandfather.
Like, ragdolling her.
Yeah, when like she's like
that seems a little awkward.
when he's trying to pick her up and stuff.
That also took me out of the
Yeah,
movie too. For a
yeah,
quick
yeah.
second. I was
Yeah,
I was like,
but
what are you doing with that dead body? Come on.
I think
Ray, are you dead?
It's like crawling underneath of her, trying to pick her up.
Yeah, because
It
like
was a little.
the first time, like, because if you look at his face, it's just like lack of emotion. Like, dude, she's dead. Can you cry or something? Like you're just like you're sitting there like, oh, what a beautiful body. You know, like, dude,
yeah.
the first time I saw it, I'm like, okay, this
As
is
if
weird.
the kiss wasn't
but
awkward enough.
every time exactly. But
Yeah,
I think,
exactly. Thank you.
I think the third time me seeing it, I'm like, all right, maybe this part has more meaning because the little bit of life that Leia had left exerted into Kylo saved Rey to where Leia and Kylo, mother and son, vanish away together. I think like if you look in that perspective, I'm like, okay, this whole healing, bring back to life thing is honestly kind of cool.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just me looking like really, really deep into it. But
I mean, it's not like we haven't seen it before. I mean, Palpatine literally talks in Revenge of the Sith about Darth Plagueis the Wise being able to save his loved ones from dying. You know, so force
It's like
healing,
the first quote in the movie.
Yeah.
right? And you've just never seen it from the Jedi because they deem it unnatural, as he literally says. But as far as Ben goes, I actually love his character the most.
I think
I hated him in The Force Awakens because I was like, he's not scary, he's not a villain, but he was never meant in J.J. Abrams. In his storyline, he was never meant to be the main villain. And I personally, I think, I love themes in a movie. The cosmetics are really second. I don't really care about that. You could have terrible effects, terrible actors, but if the themes are present, thus the prequels. That's why I love prequels. Because Hollywood would say, oh, they're terrible movies. The actors are terrible. The writing is horrible.
critics, not Star Wars
but,
fans.
But the themes are there, and they're consistent with the original trilogy.
Right.
That much about them is good. But I love Ben because stories of redemption, those are the best themes that you'll find in any movie. And his entire arc is perfectly done, at least how J.J. Abrams redeemed it.
I took a note throughout this movie that at the very beginning, first off, you see Kylo Ren be just fed up with everything from the past two movies at that very first scene when he's on Mustafar, and he's just knocking people out. He doesn't care about anything. He's a man on a
seems like
mission.
true emotion, yeah.
And I took a note that said that, like, when I first see that, it's Kylo Ren for almost the first time really seeing him be as much of a Darth Vader character as he can be. Like, he's just knocking people down like it's nothing.
And he wants to kill Palpatine. He doesn't want to.
Yeah, well, I took a note that he is so done with being used. So throughout the whole entire time, he's being
like a
used
puppet.
constantly.
Exactly.
He is just
That's what
a puppet.
Palpatine.
Exactly.
That's all he's done is Palpatine's used puppets.
And he his character tries to play off Palpatine, trying to recruit Rey to help him take him down and all that kind of
Darth
stuff.
Vader does the same thing
Yeah,
to Luke.
and like Kylo Ren and then turning into Ben shows more emotion and more of a character arc throughout this movie, where you start off seeing him as evil as he's ever been, mowing people down.
Right.
Very similar to Darth Vader in the Rogue One scene where he's on the hall just taking people out like it's nothing. Very similar to that.
Love it.
And then it ends with him being good. Like, that's a massive character arc.
Yeah. Well, kind of changing waves here, and maybe we should hit some more points that was a great point. I love it. But maybe we should hit some more stuff that's kind of controversial. And I think one of the big ones is a lot of people didn't like the way Palpatine was introduced. I personally love it. Every single time the little kid in me that saw Emperor Palpatine for the first time watching Return of the Jedi, because you can count Empire Strikes Back by the essentially hologram, but I don't. But the first time seeing Emperor Palpatine come off that Imperial shuttle, I'm just like, who is this creepy old man with a hood? But this movie, for instance, it's set up through Exegol. He flew there, he got the Pathfinder, or the Wayfinder, excuse me. He's flying through that creepy red cloud, gets an Exegol, he lands, and then you see this weirdly odd-shaped upside-down trapezoid, which I'm like, what the heck? But then the second he starts walking towards or whatever, you hear every time the lightning flashes, it's like doesn't. I can't understand like the sound.
Something.
Yeah, it's like a weird horror scream with it. And they're like, okay, and then he goes in, you start to hear like the music, the shots with like the Sith monuments, and then the part that got me the most was that deep, groany Ian McDiarmid Palpatine voice. I get goosebumps.
His
yes,
voice is
my boy. Like
He has
that
the
is
best voice in this movie.
oh
than
my
anything else.
gosh! Like that part, I can get behind.
And when we
I'll be
first see him,
passionate.
right,
yes.
with the flashlight or the lightning and stuff.
And that's just it. I
was-
can't thoroughly understand why, and I need some other opinions, maybe just me, but I don't understand why people don't like that, because even especially the part, and I put this in my note, and then I'll let you guys give the floor. every time he says, "I've been every voice you've heard inside your head," and this inside your head is Darth Vader's voice. Oh my gosh, Earl Jones, like that. It was a perfect voice, and then it goes to essentially, and I think from that moment was the final moment building up to Palpatine being flashed with the lightning with his face.
A dead face, like just a dead white eyes.
The last time I seen Palpatine's face was being thrown off the edge, and this evil man, and now he's like this ghost, but still creepy.
Yeah, I absolutely love how he's introduced into this movie. I think from a if you're going to be critical about it, which obviously we're going to be right now, I can see where upset is coming from. Where there's almost, at least that I know, there's no hint of Palpatine in any other movies. Which you could argue, if you want to try to be optimistic, you could argue that that's just how good he is.
Yeah.
That he did not present himself until he needed to. But there's no hint of him in any of the other movies, and he's just kind of more or less just popped into this movie.
Yeah.
Which I can understand that 100%. That there's no real build up to him, but other than that, like I enjoy how they put him into this.
Right.
Like I think.
Well, like we don't know how long Kylo was searching,
and then
for
they
him
don't
and stuff like that.
They don't.
We just know that.
Right.
He showed up and stuff.
Yeah.
They don't explain how he's still alive. Really. They don't really touch on that, which
that's where a lot of the frustration comes from.
Yeah, like I mean, and there's so much stuff in Star Wars. Like every plot hole that there's ever been in any movie has been covered in some comic book or anything like that. But that's not the general public.
No.
You know, and they don't go into any detail at all about how Palpatine survived. Which, the biggest argument behind Palpatine being the main bad guy in this movie is that it renders all 6 prior movies, or all 6 of the prequels and originals, useless.
Well, because of Anakin, because of Darth Vader. Because it's like he was the chosen one for a reason.
And when he destroys Palpatine, it's him completing his arc and completing balance through the Force. But then Palpatine's not actually dead, so Darth Vader didn't really do anything, which means Anakin doesn't really do anything, which means that's all pointless.
Exactly.
I agree with that. And then, I always try to play devil's advocate against the most popular, belief. And what I found is like, yes. I don't think that it renders Anakin useless at all. I still think it completes his
story.
Sure, it completed his arc, and that's all the Force used him for. He served his purpose, and it was a great purpose. It set up everything else, and
it set up Luke for not going to the dark side.
Right.
It kept Luke from going to the dark side, which then.
And it set the stage for every character after, including Rey. And that's actually a very realistic theme, because in real life, you don't have, we don't have one hero who saved the world at any point. You have one person who did an incredible thing that passed the torch onto the next person.
That inspires everybody.
Who inspires everything after that. So the first 6 movies, completed Anakin Skywalker's arc. And that was a very important... I mean, without any of that, Rey wouldn't have existed the way she did. She wouldn't have... The Rise of Skywalker wouldn't have ended the way that it did. And, as far as him coming back, yes. I questioned it. I said, well, how is he back? And then they're like, well, the Sith has many powers that most deem unnatural. And it's like, okay, sure, that passes, I guess, because we don't actually know. So you can get away with putting that in the movie and saying it should work, and having people buy that. I was a little frustrated with that. But, I do think that, there was no better villain they could have had that would have been more scary, especially since Rian Johnson killed Snoke. It's like, I think that he was a perfect villain for the movie, but it is frustrating that it wasn't established before, that it was out of nowhere. It is very noticeable that J.J. Abrams was like, who am I, what am I going to do? And then pulled Palpatine. He's alive, I see that.
Yes.
But with this movie, I don't think it would be half as good.
No.
If The Last Jedi was done right. Because, but the reason it is so much better is because I know that J.J. Abrams did the best with what he had, and I'm a lot more understanding.
It started from a low place.
Like the trajectory. Thank you. The aim that The Last Jedi put the franchise on. I'm struggling now.
Yeah.
The aim that it put it on, Rian Johnson brought it back. But you only had one movie to do that. So the beginning of it feels rushed because he's retconning a bunch of things. But then the rest of the movie, like, I made an argument. So, like, the big argument right now, or a big complaint, is that it feels like it's a rushed movie. Like, a lot of things are going on at once in it. But I argue that, like, it's not as rushed as it comes across to be. Like, it does a very good job of keeping you on board with the movie at every point. Everywhere they go that has a reason. I mean, at the very beginning, it feels like it's extremely rushed because you jump between, like, 15 planets, it feels like, through hyperspace.
Well, and the biggest
Jumping
complaint, the biggest complaint was, like, how the last thing that Kylo Ren Palpatine said was like, oh, and by the way, basically, she isn't who you think she is. And then he says, who is she? Smiles, and it cuts to the freaking, yes, I love the Easter egg, the chess game, the Millennium Falcon. Just cut the Rey floating in the sky. Like, you could have literally taken that, spliced it here, switch, and then boom, you're fine. You could just, like, change up a teeny bit. But, I mean, I think it was stuff like that. They bounce around too much, but they should. I mean, I feel like it would have flown better because you're just talking about her. Oh, here's her floating in the sky, you know?
Yeah.
True.
It flows, like, right in perfectly. But then again, whatever. True.
Also, this movie finally answers the question of first off, how Rey is so powerful. I mean, obviously she's a Palpatine to begin with, but it shows her finally training, finally trying to take hold of her powers and all that, which is amazing. We've been asking for that since the first one. We finally get to see that. But then it also goes back, and like I said earlier, it builds on The Last Jedi to where you actually see that Leia did train as a Jedi, which then fixes one of the biggest problems. It doesn't fix it because it was still poorly executed. But the whole Leia staying alive in space thing and floating back, poorly executed from a film point of view. But it makes it have meaning now because now you understand how that happened.
Right.
I'm interested to hear, David. You know, I know you said you don't like the last part with Tatooine. I'm interested because I like it personally. At least the Skywalker part.
I honestly kind of do.
It's like I get the Palpatine perspective, like, oh, you know, you define your legacy, not your ancestors. I get that, but I like the Skywalker thing because, you know, Luke and Leia were really the ones that kind of taught her everything she knows, and were the only real parents she ever had. So I like that, but I'm interested to hear what you think because, you know, I haven't heard anybody say that they don't like it and actually heard why yet.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I understand why Rey was like, "Oh, I'm a Skywalker" at the end, but
It's lazily done.
I agree with you. You know,
Yeah.
Sure.
It's lazily done where
it
the
just-
lady comes up and
Yeah.
no one's been here for a
know.
while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I think they needed an excuse to. This is my thing because I'm gonna play devil's advocate. And I'm on Shane's
I
side.
would have been better off with it if Kylo was still alive. I was really hoping that the two of them would have been like just if they were gonna make the couple thing, just keep them both alive
Yeah.
and going to the
Pick
end.
one or the other. Yeah.
They're both Skywalkers because that would make sense then.
That makes
touche.
too much sense.
Maybe
But,
she wanted to take his name.
Some PG-13.
Exactly.
Oh, that would have made sense.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing, I think the thing that I look. All right, this also probably once again comes from seeing it 3 times. I'm sorry, I'm a nerd, but I think it's this time. It came to my mind today, and I wanted to save it for this. I wanted to say it so bad earlier, but it's essentially when that whole moment, from the moment she gets off the ship and walks over, I'm like, this is my childhood. I remember watching New Hope on TV as like a 5-year-old kid. I'm like, what the heck is this? What kind of dome-shaped thing is in the sand of this like little like blonde guy? I don't know what it was. I was a young kid.
Yeah.
But like as I go older, I was like, that is what Star Wars started with in '77. It started like that as a kid. So I think what's nostalgic is not only is that the placement of the first movie that wasn't in space, but like the first planet, other than like the introduction with R2-D2 and C-3PO, but the first like the Skywalker, Luke. Thought he left that place thinking he was a nobody.
Yeah.
He left that place, and then at the end of all these 9 movies, the conqueror of Emperor Palpatine, the granddaughter Palpatine, is the one to like leave her legacy. And the last spot of the entire film is at, you know, the Uncle Owen Beru Lars farm or whatever, moisture farm, whatever it's called. And I think it was a matter of like giving that feeling that, or I think it's.
Yeah,
The fact that the name of a Skywalker,
Yeah.
and
Well,
where
I
it
get
started, but also like the Skywalker name and like who the Skywalker, like what Skywalker is, started from a nobody, ended as like the conqueror and savior of the galaxy, if you will. And I think like seeing like maybe it was just me with the Force Ghost of Luke and Leia together, and then like knowing that, you know, they're probably proud of her because it's the first time she's seen them both since she passed. She hasn't seen Leia since the beginning. Maybe it was all that combined. But granted, that's not going to come from the first time you see it because you're just like, holy crap, what?
I'm okay with the Tatooine. I love ending it there with the double suns and all that kind of stuff. Like I love all that.
That's
I think
fine.
every
Yeah,
time,
like I really like the bearing of the
I don't
two
care that
lightsabers.
every
Rey's
time
there.
throughout the entire movie that they made her say her last name was very poorly done.
Yeah.
Like it
Like
was
with that
lazy
little
writing.
girl, with that little
Yeah.
alien.
It was
girl.
very lazy writing. It doesn't need to be done. You can do the exact same thing through like
the hologram,
acting.
or not the hologram, but the Sith, or not the Sith goes. Where's my mind going there?
Force goes.
The Force goes with Leia and Luke out in the distance. Like it just felt all just perfect and cliche and catchy.
Yeah.
It didn't work for me.
And I mean,
and
if
then
it's,
also,
I'm
sorry to run,
Yeah,
but
no,
I just
you're
wanna
good.
Go for it.
say the lightsaber burial was weird too. Like, okay, you're just throwing out Leia's lightsaber now, and I don't know.
True,
and
you
then,
did just
And then
get
she
it.
makes a random other lightsaber that's yellow, so she's a gray Jedi now, and it's
Yeah.
like such a weird
Well,
ending.
a little into the
It
yellow
brings up
lightsaber.
questions that you don't want to be brought
Yeah.
up at the end of a
Yeah.
9-movie saga.
Saga, yeah.
Supposed
I
to
guess
be
just the
over.
their touch on the yellow lightsaber thing is the yellow lightsaber actually signifies balance in the Force, and not that it's actually there, but you're one to like essentially either bring it or protect it. So, for instance, like and this is very far into the lore. Your theorist and Star Wars Explained guy would probably know, but essentially it's like we talked about earlier, like those that protected the Jedi Temple, they weren't necessarily like true Jedi, but they're more like protector of the Jedi itself and like
Right.
the,
The Force.
itself,
Protector
the
of the
Force.
Yeah, no.
And they all had yellow lightsabers, and then there's somewhere in like the deep book, like one of those books there that you can read that no one really does, is that the one other Jedi that actually had a yellow lightsaber was like the one that was known for nothing but bringing balance, and for like that's all he like fought for.
That's
if you will.
interesting. I appreciate that moment a little more here.
Yeah.
I do like the fact that, because I liked the more, gray Jedi, if you know about that theory. Like, I do
Yeah.
like Luke's, kind of donning that image, but, the complacency that comes by default with the gray Jedi is not
Right.
really part of his character, and I didn't like that too much. But I do like, I kind of like how they at least, finished his legacy by taking Rey and what she possessed from him, and then concluded his arc as well a little better, because The Last Jedi did not really do him justice, I think, at all.
Right.
So she kind of like took a piece of him with her, and the yellow lightsaber thing really ties that together. So I do like that.
I agree
that I'm
with the elements. It's just it wasn't executed right.
You're right.
I
yes.
think
A
now
lot
that-
of potential.
I'll give you that one.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I think that I think I'm on your side now. I think the Tatooine, all that could have been left off. Yes, it's nice to end it kind of where it ended.
Full circle. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that, but
At the
you
expense
couldn't.
of a lot of things.
Any viewer, anyone in the movie theater can make the jump that Rey's not going to associate herself with the Palpatine.
Right.
She's going to associate herself with the Skywalkers who raised her.
Yeah.
That, like you don't need to bring up the questions that the Tatooine scene brings up.
well, why does she need to go as Skywalker? I mean, she's been going her whole life as just Rey. Like, she doesn't.
Maybe it finally makes her feel like she's attached to something important or something special.
Yeah.
Because for a while she thought her parents were dead or just left her for crap, and she was under the control
What if you had
of that weird like junk dude, and then all she did was scavenge Star Destroyer parts for the next to nothing of money, and then she met BB-8 and her life was better. So
I think a possible better ending would have been they're all celebrating. They're all jumping up and down,
you want
celebrating.
another Return of the
and
Then
then
Jedi
she
indoor scene?
she turns around and
We went to
sees.
the Force Ghost, like 8 Jedi just sitting there.
I don't know. See, like, okay, so you know how you have like the whole wall of like the Sith, right? You just have a whole wall of the Jedi in the Forest, just all clapping.
Oh, that might have something
No,
like
like
that.
they're celebrating
Every
themselves.
Jedi that's ever been is just clapping in the trees.
Yeah.
Or she looks up at
That'd be
like the
hilarious.
stars, and you just hear their voices like celebrate. Like,
Right. I think
So-
that's what they kind
calm.
of tried to do with the voices when she
Yeah.
was, kind of rallying.
Yeah.
Overall,
Looking past
though-
the lightning.
Right.
which I liked that.
I
That was-
loved that. And I got
yeah.
some of these two guys after the movie is I paid more attention to it because I also watched the New Rock Stars channel. We watch a lot about all the breakdowns of all the big stuff, especially Star Wars, and he was talking about how which character Adi Gallia from this and Ail Sakura and all the like small ones that weren't obvious, like Mace Windu, Liam
Yeah.
Neeson as
I heard
Qui-Gon and all
Sam
those.
Jackson.
Oh yeah,
But-
he sticks
My-
out.
All of them.
My
yeah.
He sticks
favorite, I
out.
think the most nostalgic is Yoda because he's like, arguably the most powerful Jedi of all time and most well known. He's like just this comical little green guy. I mean,
Right.
shoot, there is a potential baby Yoda, whatever, Mandalorian. I haven't seen episode 7 and 8 yet, so don't spoil.
Oh.
But, yeah, we watch as a group of siblings, so I can't watch 7 and 8
Y'all
yet.
need to watch that tonight.
No, I know.
Are you done with it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I kind of paid attention the third time, is he was like the middle like Jedi of that group, and it got the most quiet. Like they were fully like spanned out of like the lightning in the battle. They were like focused in the like stars and like transitioned to her, and I think it was just hearing his voice again. But it was actually the Frank Oz. I'm not saying I think they technically used like Frank Oz was in episode 8, but I don't know. It's not like muffled. I don't know if it's because he was the Force Ghost.
Because he's old too.
Well, that but I don't know. Maybe it was just me. I thought that was just so powerful, and because it started like get really fast paced, and then his voice was like nice and slow and calm, and like with
It kind of calmed it back down.
Yeah, and the next thing you know, all the Jedi came together, and
Build
then
up,
Luke,
rise,
her
rise.
I guess first master, if you could kind of was master. That last statement, and then next thing you know, she gets up, which I also paid attention and took note of. When she has the lightsaber up, she's blocking the lightning. Palpatine's doing his thing. I got nothing but major Mace Windu Palpatine callbacks. Well, the main one that I noticed, and again, you'll know just walk for the next time you see it, was when she gets the second lightsaber, and let's see if I have it. Essentially, right when she like takes 2 lightsabers and like is pushing him back down on him, his face when the hood pushes off is the same look when he act like that final moment lightning's on him as like in episode 3.
Yep.
And the screech or yell that he makes is the same one that he made right before he dies, the same as Mace Windu did before he was force pushed out of the window. I kid you not.
I didn't catch that.
And to my knowledge, I don't know. I'm pretty certain it was the exact same, but if not, it sounded like it. But what I took it as like Mace Windu was almost getting his revenge like through her on him, and I thought it was like pretty powerful because like the way even the noise he was making, and then I don't know. I thought it was like just an awesome scene.
Revenge is not the Jedi way. Come on.
But you're conquering the most powerful Sith.
It's more redemptive than anything.
I do want to throw in the Palpatine death, him getting his skin and all of his muscle, everything coming off of. That was so satisfying.
Yes.
That was really great.
I hope he's dead now.
Yeah,
right.
That was really great.
One of the last things I really want to bring up is that
Please be dead.
I love.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
This isn't the last thing that we'll bring up. This is just the last big thing I want to make sure that I talk about. Is Lando Calrissian's like role in the movie. I don't care for the first scene that he's in. I don't really feel like he's Lando in that scene. Doesn't really act himself. I'm not entirely sure if he's just been hanging out on that planet this whole time, or I know he talks about
I
he
just
got
thought it was a really good callback to Return of the Jedi when he's in the mask.
I appreciated that.
That's what I got
100%.
too.
Yeah, I actually like that. That made sense.
100%.
Because he's blending in until he needs to make his mark, aka headshot on a stormtrooper.
But when Poe is sitting over Leia's bed and he's lost and he doesn't know what to do, and you just hear Lando's voice come in behind him and go, "Neither did we. We had each other." Like it's just like it sends chills, and it's like that's what kind of like re-sparks them going out and finally doing it together and all that stuff. I love that moment.
To kind of bounce off that, since you're talking about Lando, I actually took note of when the first thing that kind of made me think of Lando before it, and granted I knew I actually saw this a second time, but when they kind of like push out of that ice wall or whatever, when they're getting the secret message from that like weird iceberg planet or base or whatever it was.
Installation.
Yeah.
What did you guys think about Hux being the spy?
I hate Hux as a character before. I think him calling out that I'm the spy fits his character perfectly because I don't like his character.
I don't either.
Perfect. I love
the first time watching it, when Poe turns around and goes, "I knew it!" Like that took me out of the movie because it was like that's such a meta thing because it's every person in the crowd is also like, "I knew it."
I thought it was almost I thought it was just common.
But the second time I watched it, I liked it more.
No, you're not. No, you didn't.
Yeah,
like,
no,
all
you
that,
did.
all
It felt like two people in the movie theater just watching it.
Yeah, all of that like felt just comical.
But I hated Hux, and I love that they replaced him with an actual like intimidating general guy.
General Pry was good.
Yeah.
He was the Imperial officer I wanted the entire time.
Now, General Hux in the first in Force Awakens was good. Like his speech when he's in front of all those people, that's a good speech.
What made it?
Ryan Johnson tears him down when he has like Poe make fun of him in the first one
with that stupid joke.
With
the joke that you don't
like. I hate
like.
that so much. From that moment on, Hux is just a joke. Yeah. And then like him getting laid off in this one, I love that.
That was perfect.
It
actually,
and then like the guys,
his whole arc
he had a point.
Good.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I love that J.J. Abrams did. That's one of those moments where it's like, you're right, it does make The Last Jedi better.
It does.
Because he took all of these broken pieces and he collected them together almost like a mosaic and just
like
you don't like how
Took
Hux is a coward and all that. Well, guess what? He's actually helping the Resistance now because of how cowardice he is, and then he gets what to do.
He made made everything work. Everything that Rian Johnson, I feel like, had no plan for. There was no trajectory. Maybe even J.J. Abrams in The Force Awakens, like parts that he didn't think would end up this way, that Rian Johnson kind of like, sent in this different direction. J.J. Abrams just kind of took this creative look at all this and said, hold on, how can I make all of this fit together?
One of the big scenes that I thought, I was having this debate with Luke today, is that the scene in Last Jedi, when she goes down into the hole and she's looking at the reflections of herself and all that. I didn't like that scene at all when I first saw it because it didn't make a lot of sense. Now that I rewatch, or now that I'm thinking about it, knowing what happens, I wonder if what she says, like, who am I, or something like that, and it shows her herself, right? And I wonder if that's because she's seeing what she's most afraid of, which is herself.
Yeah.
Which now makes that scene have more value to me.
Which also we talked about earlier is I almost feel like The Rise of Skywalker made The Last Jedi like a half a star better.
Yeah,
totally.
For sure.
It made
it relevant.
It made Force Awakens a whole star better, kind of a thing. Because
at the same time, you don't have to watch Episode 8 at all. You can skip right over it and not really miss a beat.
I'm always gonna watch. I mean, we talk about this quite a bit, and I mean, in a way, as like comically,
I make an argument
watch...
that you can summarize the whole movie in one line of a crawl.
Yeah.
The First Order, or the rebellion, has been on a hot chase by the First Order that ends in a heated fight on Hoth or Crate, and then the Episode 8 would start with the battle on Crate. And that's the whole movie.
8 or 9 already has enough though in it.
Yeah.
To add that battle.
I was talking to my uncle about this. You could have totally split this movie in 2 parts.
100%.
If obviously, Star Wars has a very specific structure, trilogy, saga. But if it wasn't that,
it would have for
Disney
sure.
would have totally done an Endgame.
Yeah.
What is it? Infinity War Endgame type of thing with part 1, part 2, because you could have easily done that with this film.
Yeah.
You could.
100%.
I would have let go of the trilogy tradition if they had done that, because it would have made it. I mean, it would have worked better. It would have made it more worth it.
So I think just for time's sake, it's been a great discussion so far. Yeah. The last main thing I want to bring up, because I know I've seen a lot of channels do this, and I want our opinions to be put out there because you mentioned it to me.
I don't know where this is going.
You don't.
I don't.
What Finn was going to tell Rey when they were sinking in the pit.
You didn't hear about this?
No, I have.
Okay.
I have, but I want to hear everyone's thoughts, and I don't know if you have yet.
I haven't heard about this.
So DJ, direct this to Shane and see what he thinks before you tell him.
So, Rian Johnson came out.
No,
JJ. Sorry. Rian Johnson's in a whole second. JJ Abrams came out and said.
Hiding behind CNN.
So when we watched it, my first opinion was obviously he was going to tell Rey that he loves her, or something like that, something corny, and that's why it never came up, and that's why I didn't want to say it. Rian Johnson, JJ Abrams came out and said,
team, man.
How many do you have?
JJ Abrams came out and said that he was going to say that he also senses the Force.
Before you said that, I thought about it.
And then, so going back into it, watching it again, I kept a little tally of how many times throughout the movie he clearly senses the Force, and that affects his action.
3 or 4,
at least three very distinct times.
3 or 4 we're talking about,
When Kylo's at the desert planet, he knows what's going on. He senses the danger right away, the same way.
When Rey is,
he also senses that what Rey is doing with the serpent thing, which is why he tells Poe not to shoot and all that kind of stuff. Knows what ship has the signals coming out. He senses it. The second he sees it, he goes, "That's the one." He senses it.
Yep. And then he knows when she's dead.
Yeah. Yep. The second Rey goes down,
Millennium
Finn feels it right away.
And now I really want to go back and watch 7 and 8 and see how many times that.
Yeah.
They might not hint it at as obvious.
And that's why he was better at
like the whole
lightsaber.
him using a lightsaber.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. The fact that
he can even put up a fight against Kylo.
Yeah. That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Kylo should have just been able to.
Well, the argument against what you said about how Kylo should have been able to destroy Finn in the first one. Kylo Ren is clearly mocking him. Like, he does a lot of things throughout that fight where it's like showboating. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he's like showing off, kind of like having fun with him. Mm. But
also, he was injured too.
Yeah, he's also injured. He makes a clear sign of that. Yeah. All right, closing remarks, starting with Cody.
Dang.
We're not even going to talk about that kiss again.
Closing remarks. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can go. Man.
Okay, well, I guess it goes first this
It's
time.
going last
So,
every time.
touche. So, Rise of Skywalker, it's been a great discussion. Seen it 3 times. It's great. I'll go see it 3 more times. In theaters. I'll be buying it the day it comes out on Blu-ray and 4K, probably.
But Disney Plus.
Cody is
True,
single-handedly.
it's not coming out on
But
Blu-ray.
DJ can.
Cody
DJ
is
and
single-handedly pushing this movie towards the billion mark.
Duh. I mean, it had like the 5th biggest
already
opening on the Thursday early premiere with like 40 million. I don't know. All I know is like barely behind Last Jedi. I'm like, why is it not before? But then again, just
Should be
because people
before.
still have a
bad
rotten
taste.
taste in their mouth
Yeah.
from Last Jedi. But closing remarks, it was great. I gave it 4 to 5. I think it ranks 5 or 6. I want to go back, but I think 5 and 6 just for the nostalgic ending, all the fun Easter eggs, how happy I was that J.J. Abrams saved the day. I can go on this list, but I thought it was great. You need to go see it right now.
Yeah, I thought it was great too. It makes me want to go back and watch The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, and also just all of them. Guess I could have just said that. I give it 8.5.
Out of 10?
Yeah, out of 10.
I mean, closing remarks. I enjoyed the movie. Like I said, it makes The Last Jedi a better movie in my opinion. Not a great movie. It mishandles a lot of things and just poor execution. But the meaning behind those things are better now, or some of them. There are plenty of times throughout the movie where I'm smiling from ear to ear just because of something that happened. C-3PO is a standout comedian in this movie, and I love it. They make him so funny in the first half. And then I took a note that I feel like they purposefully, I think someone doesn't like this.
I love
I take a note that I think they made him so funny and so full of character in the beginning of the movie, so there's a distinct difference from when he gets his brain wiped and then turns back to
And then mad and make up for the lack of C-3PO in 7 and 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, he was a standout comedian in this movie,
Which
which I love. I thought it was
first line
hilarious.
of Star Wars in 77.
Yep.
He's the first line. So they have to make up for, everyone loves Anthony Daniels. He's a freaking hilarious dude.
Yeah.
Everyone loves C-3PO. He's a knucklehead. But he's like that comic relief, and he's always been the true comic relief that we can
The only
rely on.
comic
thought-
relief we really should have had in Star Wars, to be fair.
Not Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah. Or 7 and 8, the quippy Marvel humor. And
Jar Jar
Force
Binks, the
Awakens
Sith
and-
evil genius behind everything.
Right.
Yeah.
So for me,
Episode
humor.
10 comes
Poor
out.
Ryan Johnson's
My
crying.
closing remarks.
Oh, you went on a
Okay,
tangent.
Proceed.
I did go on a tangent. Humor is a big thing for me in movies, and Last Jedi completely fell flat. I don't think a single joke really landed for me in that movie.
They tried
But
to.
Rise of Skywalker, just about every joke hit. I thought it was hilarious, and I enjoyed it.
I honestly don't like to rate with numbers because that just adds too much of a true value to something that's really subjective. But overall, I think from a film perspective, it was really well retrieved, well executed. Well, okay, not perfectly executed. We established that. I think it added more potential and fell short of execution for sure, but for what it was and for what he had to work with, I think JJ did a fantastic job. I'm sure I've said that at least 7 times now. Endor will always be the happiest ending Star Wars ever had at the end of Return of the Jedi, and it's the true ending, to me. But despite the fact that Disney had no plan, and they really just gave a lot of creative freedom to these directors, I still think that it did add some value, to the saga. And, I think that we definitely learned something too. I hope Disney learned something because they own Star Wars now, so we know there's going to be more stuff. They seem to have done pretty well, at least with The Mandalorian. They are catching on,
Yeah.
how to make a Star... Oh, we can't just make crap and put Star Wars on and expect it to sell. We actually have to deliver. That's why Star Wars name carries so much weight. And I hope that they... that what's his name, like Bobby Iger, CEO of Disney. Bob Iger, yeah. I hope
Bobby, if you're friends, yeah.
right. Obviously not him and George Lucas at this point. Not him and George. I hope that George isn't really too disappointed, even amidst $4.1 billion or whatever he sold Star Wars for. But that'll always be disappointing. But at least it added value, and that's still an important thing. And despite what happened, that's a pretty impressive thing.
David Hall.
First, I just want to say, if we have time, we should go back through really quickly. And
Sure.
if you had to rank each trilogy as what your favorite is. So sequel trilogy, prequel trilogy, original trilogy.
You're one of the guests, so let's do it. You can
I
start.
dig it.
I'll do that at the end. Let me.
I dig
Okay.
it.
But I want you guys to start thinking about that. Like, what would you
Okay.
rank each trilogy? But in terms of Rise of Skywalker, there's definitely some things that like took me out of the movie. Not as much as The Last Jedi. I did like The Last Jedi, but there's definitely issues, and I agree with a lot of the arguments a lot of Star Wars fans make. There's definitely complete justice for criticism for that movie, but I still enjoyed it. In terms of Rise of Skywalker, I do agree that with a lot of what you guys were saying, that Last Jedi is a lot more enjoyable because of it, but there are still things about the Rise of Skywalker that still take me out of the movie, like The Last Jedi did. Another, like, we didn't really briefly talk about it, but, like, how on earth do you put Death Star tech on an Imperial Star Destroyer?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of little things were in this movie.
Okay,
Of
yeah.
course, I was talking at the beginning about Palpatine. Like, okay, he's back. There's a lot of little things that weren't explained. That's just me just being, like, nitpicking.
The things that keep with you at night.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that
does
just-
make
I want to
sense?
like it, but
Is
Yeah,
that
exactly.
just because you don't want to have to go back and change your Star Destroyer MOCs to
Yeah,
put a big cannon on them?
Oh, man. It changed everything.
it's all wrong.
Wrong.
I'd say it's interesting because the beginning part was rushed, but the whole middle, the second we get to Pasana, the desert planet, all the way until I'd say like at the beginning of the Star Destroyer versus Resistance scene, like that whole middle part was pretty much perfect. I don't have any complaints during much of that. A couple things, but it was always just the beginning being too rushed and the ending just not landing completely for me. It works. I need to go back and see it again. I like that it goes full circle, and we talked like it has all the elements there. It just wasn't executed as well as it could have been, but given that JJ came on last minute, had to just do with a lot of things. Colin Trevorrow, the Jurassic Park director, was supposed to do this movie in the first place, and he had his own way of doing it, and so JJ had to come in and like save, like we were talking about this at the beginning as well. He had to come in and save like basically where this ship was sinking.
Damage control.
And given that he did a good job, not everything landed, but it's definitely a good Star Wars movie. Isn't my favorite, but I definitely enjoyed it. But yeah, let's talk about now that the saga is complete, the Skywalker
1, 2, and 3.
So just focusing on the sequels. Now are we labeling as prequels?
Original, and sequel.
1,
Yep.
2, and 3. Which one?
I don't want to go first this time.
Okay, easy for me. Original first, prequels second, sequels last.
Now we're just going to go on the table. We're going to defend it a little bit.
I see we just go around.
Okay.
I mean,
This is really tough, man.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to go originals. I think all 3 movies are good. Great. I would go with sequels because 1, I very much enjoy 1 and 3.
A lot of eyebrows raised. Just
Yep.
now.
Yeah.
I very much enjoy 1 and not 1 and 3, but 7 and 9. And then and then the prequels.
And then you put
I
Last
don't
Jedi
care
last.
for 1 and 2. 3 I think is amazing. Really, really good. Almost that one movie's almost edging out the 2 good movies of the prequels, but not quite. Just for time of movies that I can enjoy.
Right.
I'm gonna go with original, prequels, sequels.
Yeah.
Because The Last Jedi just really knocks it down a little bit.
It throws off the whole.
The balance.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to go with Shane and Luke. It's gonna be originals, prequels, sequels. Now, I grew up more with the prequels in a way of they're more nostalgic because we saw episode 2 and I was able to see episode 2 and 3 in theaters. Episode 1, I was like 4 years old and I was just introduced to it. So I never saw it in the theaters, but I remember like right after that's when my dad actually told me about it. I remember going like to the store and
You didn't
getting
go
a
see
little
the 3D release of episode 1? You remember that?
I didn't go see it.
Oh.
No, yeah.
Darn.
I know. I was
Go see Darth Maul's boogers hanging out of his nose.
go see his horns and more
Poking
pointy
you in the
form.
eyeball, yeah.
But no, I think we grew up more with the prequels, as in like Lego Star Wars, and you know, my action figures and my memorabilia and even Battlefront, like everything put together, I grew up with that. I saw it in theaters. But I think the originals, I remember being, I remember seeing The New Hope and the others before actually watching Phantom Menace. I think it was like a year or two after. I don't know what my parents were doing. Come on, Dad, what are you doing? It took them like a year or two to show it to me, but the originals are just more nostalgic to me. So I'm so
There you go.
yeah, go on ahead.
I'm gonna wipe the table and say it's prequels, original, sequel.
Oh,
That's right.
Crazy.
Prequels never won trilogy, and I know like episode 1 is pretty trashy, especially with Jar Jar.
But it has Darth Maul.
It does have
And
redeeming
it
qualities.
has,
Darth Maul.
yeah.
As Darth Maul, it introduces Anakin.
Trust me, the
first
writing
Skywalker.
and just a lot. There's so much to hate on with the prequels, but it's the overall story of basically building the Empire with Palpatine and all of that, and Anakin's story developing, you know, to get to Luke's story, like just that whole thing. You know, you were just talking about it's. I'd probably rack it up to yeah. That's what I grew up with.
Yeah.
The nostalgia, everything kind of comes full circle with that in terms of what I grew up with. So that's probably why I'm putting it as number 1. It's definitely not filmmaking wise. It's definitely not the best trilogy.
No.
It's definitely the originals. But to me personally, what I enjoy the most, it's gonna be the prequels, specifically Episode 3. Like that. That is just such a standout movie for me.
Yeah.
I have rewatched it hundreds, if not thousands, of times now, and I still get like shivers and like I freeze up when I see the Anakin versus Obi-Wan fight scene and all that.
The music.
All the
too.
fight scenes in that movie were so perfect.
It
And
starts out with an amazing starfighter battle.
yeah, no, exactly, and
Over Coruscant. You always thought of Coruscant as just this like
exactly.
weird, you know,
City
political,
planet.
yeah, that just the city that never sleeps, the planet that never sleeps. But next thing you know, you have a full-on battle around it.
Yeah. I'd rack up Episode 3 for the reason why I'm switching around pretty much what everybody else said here. Sequels are great, it's you know there's some quibs, you know, with it, and it's good. I do feel like they should have followed a little bit more of the what did they call it? The stuff that had been written in the books prior to Lucasfilm being bought by Disney.
Legends.
The Legends,
Legends
thank
and
you.
canon.
Should have
but
just
it's
followed
just
George
not-
Lucas had written scripts.
Yeah,
Like,
I wish they would have gone a little bit more with that. And like you were saying at the beginning, you know, they should have had a better plan. It's very obvious that one director had one thing, another had another, and then the other had to like change it again. So it's very obvious like things were being mashed together very quickly. Whereas the original trilogy, and you can see in the documentaries, George Lucas had the whole thing planned out. Like, we're going to start with this. You know, if this thing gets lit, we'll talk about how Luke is Darth Vader's son. And then we'll end it off with this and this whole big emperor. Like, he had a perfect plan. And that is Star Wars. And he did the same thing with the prequels. And you can very much see that across
It's all
the
his
entire film.
mind, yeah.
The sequels, on the other hand, it's just all over the place, and you can see how things had to be retconned so many times, and things were changed and then had to be re-followed up on. So that's the main issue, is that it falls out of that, you know, perfect, you know, there was a clear idea and story to be told throughout the entire thing. So yeah.
I think because like George Lucas's mind created the first 6. And then with the last 3, I think Disney was so afraid, like so weary because of the responsibility that they had to create movies that were like similar and identical to George Lucas's mind being projected into a screen, that they were like, you know what, you Star Wars fans know better than we do, go crazy.
Yeah.
But there's so many different angles, so many different flavors.
When
that
you-
it just
The
when you
Star
think-
Wars fandom is spread out over 40 years.
I think now that we have, you know, all the fans
42.
really like the prequels and the original trilogies, and then also looking at the Mandalorian TV show, that's another thing where Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, which were the creators of that show, they both had a very clear, especially when, I know you haven't seen the finale yet, but once you see the whole first season, that's another great example of like they had a very clear, concise idea of what they want to be told, and that's why that whole show already is like hitting home with all the Star Wars fans. And I think that's again why the sequels just kind of failed in that aspect.
Yeah.
They're great movies, they're great Star Wars movies in their own right, and they have quibs, of course, but it's just lacking that cohesiveness between all of them.
Agreed.
It's something
Agreed.
very important to Star Wars, apparently. Now you see the whole picture.
Yeah.
Now we're done
Yeah.
with the whole thing. But going forward, I think that the 2022, when we're gonna get whatever next trilogy, whether that's, I mean, they kicked off the Game of Thrones guys, so
Yeah,
who knows?
that's really
The
disappointing.
only one that's still doing it is Ryan Johnson. So who knows? What those
I heard the
movies will
Russo
be.
brothers were interested in it.
I don't know.
Oh, then we're gonna get what 22 more movies.
Well, I know.
A bunch of like Hootie
I
Shooty
know
Bang
what's
Bang
his name.
stuff.
Kevin Feige from Marvel is actually developing one of the Star Wars movies.
Yeah,
Man.
I remember seeing that.
He's nothing if not a man with a plan.
Yeah, exactly.
He-
So if
he's
anybody
got
can
a
bring
plan.
the cohesiveness
Yeah.
back,
Mhm.
it's Kevin Feige.
Now, when would you? All right, last thing, we'll call it quits. Just because it sounds like we need to do more of these videos, is what it sounds like to me.
Too much content.
Where do you want the next trilogy placement to be?
I'm still on board with what they were going to do with the Game of Thrones guys, which is Old Republic. I
Yes.
really want to see
Yes,
that.
yes,
That
yes,
would
yes,
make a
yes.
great trilogy.
Younger Yoda, younger Palpatine,
Looking
forward to
Old
go
Republic.
I
You
made
don't
it.
even have to. No, I'm talking like the full 1,000 years
Yeah,
before.
I made-
Like,
yeah.
let's just fresh slate.
I made an argument.
All the way up to the birth.
So going with like how much scale the Rise of Skywalker had, when I was sitting in the theater the first time, I was realizing like, we will never see. My first thought was we will never see a Star Wars movie with this much scale again, because you can't, because then it takes the emphasis out of this.
Unless you.
And if something in the past, unless you're going to go way into the future, because anything in the past that would have been this big, it's not that cool. Because
Yeah.
you know it's
Yeah,
going to dissolve.
exactly.
Yeah.
but if you go way, way, way back, you can have gigantic things in different ways.
Exactly.
Like that, and it completely changes the Star Wars landscape in a way that we don't know.
Battlefront 2 is gonna have to just convert to a third. They're gonna have to make a third game if
Yeah.
they go that far, because they're like, oh, we can't keep doing all these
Yeah.
updates.
Just make a new Republic game.
I'm excited that we're gonna get some. Mandalorian's getting a second
Yeah, I saw that.
season.
That was what, today
And
or
the Clone
yesterday?
Wars show come back too next
Yep.
February.
Wait,
That's
what?
exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yo.
I need to
2 months
finish.
from now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
rewatch. I started it, but
Yeah, I'm gonna go back and have to watch the whole thing to stop. How many seasons are there? 5, 6, 5,
something
Five.
like that.
There's 6 seasons.
6?
6. I remember watching only like up to season 4, only because like it got so like repetitive. And I was like, so.
Oh no, man! 5 is where it's,
Dude, it gets better the later
Yeah.
you go. It gets darker.
Yeah,
It starts
gets
off
so much
really
better.
childish at first.
Have you seen all
Yeah.
of Rebels
I
as
can-
well?
Yeah, I watched the whole show. I also watched
I'm
the first
working on
season
it.
of Resistance. And I
Is
already
Rebels
done
is
Or
Rebels
was it
good? Rebels isn't good.
that. No, Resistance is.
Oh, is Rebels good?
Rebels is pretty.
Because I watched I just started.
Clone Wars
it.
is definitely the best.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just started Rebels and I was a little upset that it wasn't like Clone Wars
Yeah.
where
It's
it's
a
Yeah,
lot, it's a lot more
episodic.
It
lighthearted.
feels
in a
like
way.
a downgrade. in
Yeah.
terms of the
very
whole show.
Clone Wars on Disney
lighthearted.
Plus?
But that's
Yeah.
Clone Wars. Yeah.
That's how
all
that's
these
how
Star
I'm
Wars
watching
shows
it.
are on Disney
Oh
Plus.
dear God, I'm about to just
Yep.
go.
All right,
All right, looks like Cody's
So
not
this
gonna
video is
work.
being sponsored by Disney Plus.
Yeah.
No.
Yes, guys.
That'd be awesome.
David, it's been a pleasure. 2
Absolutely.
videos.
Thank you guys.
The last 2 podcasts have been with you. It's been awesome just to learn and collab with you after who would have thought meeting you in the theater 4 years ago would have turned into this.
Exactly.
And so hopefully
Thank you
we'll-
very, very, very much.
Yeah.
thank
Maybe
you
I'll
for
return
coming
for
out.
another podcast.
That would be amazing.
We'd
You're
love it.
always welcome.
We can bring you back and you can argue why the prequels are so good.
we really should do that.
I have horrible argument points for that. I don't know.
but see, I love prequels as well,
Yeah.
and I have logical arguments to back that up, so it's okay.
The argument point is this toy was my favorite toy.
The clone turbo tank is fantastic.
I think what I admire from someone like you that thinks the prequels are the best is you're a true Star Wars fan if you say the prequels are the best.
Yeah.
You know, like I mean, I'm being serious. Like a lot of people like I saw on Twitter, like the first
You gotta
couple.
really like Star Wars. To
Yeah.
Like the prequel.
Yeah, and I think
That's
like I was saying, like the first couple nights post release of Rise of Skywalker, everyone was saying those hating it. I could just look right at them and tell they weren't Star Wars fans. They weren't even saying like certain names right and spelling them out. I'm like, I'm cringing
'cause
so bad.
You make a good point because I'm looking past basically all the dialogue and what makes the movies bad. I'm looking
Yeah.
at the bigger, like
That's
the
all.
lore.
It's
the
all
whole
cosmetic.
movie.
All the
Exactly.
complaints are cosmetic.
All
It's
the
like I don't
visuals.
care if it's not Hollywood's narrative.
Yeah.
The themes are there. The story
Exactly.
is there, and
Yeah.
that's what matters. That's
Exactly.
why you still feel something, and it's consistent with the rest of Star Wars. So
I think we're making full circle right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll
right.
We'll stop
That's for
here.
another podcast.
Save it for more podcasts to come.
Catch you guys on the next podcast.
Episode 10. Signing off.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Hey, young viral.